Remember the thrill of seeing your photos instantly without waiting days for film to develop? The gentle whir of the lens motor, the satisfying click as you pressed the shutter. Digital cameras of the 90s brought a wave of excitement that changed how we captured our world. These chunky, curious gadgets felt almost futuristic, turning us all into spontaneous photographers, no film rolls or dark rooms required. The tiny LCD screens, grainy by today's standards, felt nothing short of magical. Suddenly, family vacations, birthday parties, and candid moments could be shared and retaken on the spot. Think back to the first time you downloaded blurry snapshots to your bulky home computer. You might recall the faint hum of a dial-up connection and the pride of sharing images with distant loved ones by email. For many, these early digital cameras replaced the careful planning of film shots, with carefree experimentation forever altering the rituals of memory-making. What was your first digital photo? A pet, a relative's smile, a favorite place? Let's take a closer look at how these pioneering cameras of the 1990s captured a decade and began a revolution in how we remember. Step back to the early 1990s, a time when most families still tucked canisters of 35mm film into their pockets before a picnic or school play, never daring to snap too many photos for fear of wasting a shot. Photography was a precious, almost ceremonial act. You lined up the kids in their best clothes, checked the lighting, and hoped for wide smiles in those handful of frames. But as the new decade unfolded, something remarkable began to happen. The world was on the edge of a technological transformation, and the quiet revolutionaries were the quirky, boxy devices soon to be called digital cameras. The very idea of a digital camera was once the stuff of science fiction, but by the early 90s it was inching ever closer to reality. The earliest models were more concept than consumer product, giant prototypes from companies like Kodak, Fuji, and Sony. Did you know that Kodak actually built the world's first digital camera way back in 1975? It weighed nearly 9 pounds and recorded black and white images to a cassette tape, taking over 20 seconds to capture a single image. But it would be almost 2 decades before this technology found its way into living rooms and family vacation bags. By the 90s, the technology had shrunk dramatically, and after years behind the scenes, digital cameras were poised to go mainstream. The camera industry had been defined by film for over a century, and giants like Kodak, Polaroid, and Canon had built empires on chemical emulsions and prints you could hold in your hand. When digital imaging arrived, it first appeared in the hands of professionals and hobbyists, those willing to accept quirks and trade-offs in the name of novelty. The earliest consumer digital cameras, arriving around 1994, were expensive and just a little odd. Think back to the Apple QuickTake 100, a squat grey rectangle that could store a mere 8 photos at 640 by 480 pixels, virtually nothing by today's standards. Even so, the promise was electrifying: instant review, no film, and the ability to erase mistakes with a press of a button. For the first time, you could preview your memories before committing them to eternity. Those pioneering cameras were more than novelties. They marked the beginning of a cultural shift. The first models were aimed at families, travelers, and tech enthusiasts. Some, like the Casio QV10 released in 1995, introduced small LCD screens so you could instantly view your shots right on the camera, something no film camera could compete with. Who else remembers crowding around those tiny, glowing screens during a barbecue or wedding passing? The camera from hand to hand and marveling at the futuristic display. Suddenly, photography and by extension, memory-making became interactive, collaborative, and playful in a way the film era could never quite match. But that's not all. There's a surprising twist to this early story. At first, Many in the photography industry scoffed at digital cameras, dismissing them as toys better suited for computer geeks than real photographers. Major players hesitated, unsure if people would ever want to part with their beloved rolls of film. It's hard to believe now, with digital photos outnumbering printed ones by the billions, but back then nobody was certain if digital imaging would ever truly catch on. Imagine if companies like Kodak and Polaroid had taken the plunge even earlier, a question still debated in business circles today. The emergence of digital cameras also fit into the larger picture of the early 90s, an era pulsing with anticipation as personal computers, the internet, and cell phones rapidly evolved. Everything seemed to be getting smaller, faster, and more personal. It wasn't just about taking photos anymore, it was about sharing them, editing them, and integrating them into the digital world. Before, the act of developing film was always tinged with suspense. Would the photo of Grandma blowing out her candles come out clear? Would someone's eyes be closed, the memory forever trapped in a single, overexposed frame? Digital removed that uncertainty and replaced it with instant gratification, an idea as exhilarating then as it is commonplace now. Yet the digital age did not truly begin with a bang. There were growing pains, batteries that died mid-trip, memory cards that filled after a dozen shots, and images that looked better on the 2-inch camera screen than they did when printed at home. Still, these inconveniences felt minor next to the sheer novelty of the experience. Do you remember nervously handing your new digital camera to a friend, both of you half expecting it to malfunction or, worse, erase all your precious shots? Those early days of cautious optimism and wonder set the stage for everything to come and revealed just how quickly technology could transform a family ritual. You might not believe this, but the 90s digital camera boom coincided with a boom in home computing. The rise of the home PC made it possible to store, edit, and print photos right from your living room, a feat that would have seemed downright magical just a few years before. Connecting your camera with serial cables, remember those clunky grey cords, or popping a floppy disk into the family computer, became new rituals, ones tinged with both pride and wariness. Will the files load? Did the transfer work? In retrospect, those headaches were a small price to pay for what seemed like the future arriving right on your kitchen table. The late 90s rapidly accelerated this shift as digital camera technology improved at breakneck speed, and prices, while still hefty, began to come within reach for many families. Suddenly, the newspapers were full of predictions that film was doomed, a prophecy hard to imagine considering the long reign of companies like Kodak. But what may surprise you even more is that despite the rapid improvements, those early digital photos didn't always match the quality of film. Many hobbyists would straddle both worlds, snapping digital pictures to share quickly while still tucking film into their real camera for weddings, holidays, or meaningful occasions. So, what was it like the first time you brought a digital camera into your family's world? Did you tuck it into your suitcase for a long-planned trip, cautiously experiment at a backyard cookout, or capture an everyday moment you might otherwise have overlooked? The digital difference was about more than megapixels or menus. It was about unleashing new habits, new anxieties, and a kind of creative freedom that would snowball as the years went by. The transformation of the 90s set the stage for the wild ride that was about to follow. In our next section, we'll dig into how the nuts and bolts of these curious cameras improved, literally pixel by pixel, and how the features that seemed so groundbreaking then paved the way for how we remember today. Stay tuned, because the leap from clunky prototypes to pocket-sized marvels is full of surprises you may have forgotten or never even knew. As we come to the end of our journey through the world of 1990s digital cameras, it's almost impossible not to feel a wave of nostalgia for those early days of instant photography. The chunky shapes, the tiny memory cards barely holding a dozen photos, the anticipation of plugging your camera into the family computer and maybe, just maybe, successfully downloading that perfect snapshot. It was a decade of exploration where photography shifted gears from patience and chance to immediacy and creativity. We've reflected on the humble beginnings, the first hesitant steps with expensive, sometimes unreliable devices that caught our imaginations, even as we kept a roll of film in our back pockets, just in case. We looked back on the technological leaps, grainy sensors giving way to sharper images, LCD screens that let us huddle together and relive moments just seconds after they were made, and the early experiments in editing and sharing that hinted at the future. And perhaps most of all, we remembered how every new digital camera brought its own small sense of ceremony. Opening the box, figuring out batteries and memory cards, the delicate ritual of the first photo, be it a beloved pet, a plate of food, or a family member caught off guard. But the real story of digital cameras in the 90s isn't just about the gadgets themselves, it's about how they changed our relationships with our memories. Suddenly, taking photos was no longer about scarcity or waiting, but about abundance and boldness, snapping away without fear of wasting film, capturing the everyday laughs and misadventures that once went unnoticed. The camera became less of a witness and more of a participant in our daily lives, making even the simplest moments feel worth preserving. And through all the blurry shots, accidental selfies, and joyful discoveries, we learned to see the beauty not just in perfection, but in the experiment, the delight of trying, failing, and trying again together. Looking back, it's remarkable to realize how those first digital photos, wonky as they were, laid the groundwork for an era where sharing a moment is as simple as a tap on a screen. That sense of excitement, the curiosity and togetherness fostered by gathering around a glowing LCD or the family computer might have faded as technology grew more seamless, but the memories it shaped are still with us. The rituals may have changed, but the impulse to connect, to preserve a laugh or a milestone or a fleeting glance endures. Perhaps the greatest gift of 90s digital cameras was teaching us that every day was full of memories waiting to be caught, and every moment, no matter how small, could become part of our family's story. So, what treasured digital camera memories from the 90s come rushing back for you? Was it a birthday party, a cross-country road trip, or simply the excitement of seeing your kids take their very first photos, blurry and crooked, but absolutely perfect in your eyes? Share your favorite old digital snapshots or stories with us in the comments below. We'd love to hear about your first camera, those unforgettable oops moments, and the photos that still make you smile. If you enjoyed this walk down memory lane, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories from the era that shaped us, and share it with friends and family who captured their own slice of the 90s. We'll be revisiting even more beloved technologies and moments from our shared past in upcoming videos. For now, hold tight to those memories because, just like those precious early digital photos, they remind us that behind every pixel is a piece of our story.